As of the publishing of this video, we are only a few hours out before 2018 comes to an end, and next year, it will mark Death Stranding's 3rd anniversary since its announcement. 3 years it will have been since Kojima made his comeback after an unceremonious departure from his former employer, Konami, and many people are wondering, will that be enough time for Kojima to finish his upcoming project? Many are still holding out for a 2019 release window because of something Kojima said back in Tokyo Game Show 2017, during which he hinted Death Stranding would release before the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and Akira's 2019 setting. Whether that's realistic or not, given Kojima's history, is something we'll discuss in a bit. But for those who are still doubtful, Kojima has subtly doubled down on the notion that the game will be out in less than a year as of the publishing of this video. The following information was reported by news outlet Twinfinite, which recently released an article on something Kojima said on Japanese magazine Famitsu. The relevant excerpt from the article reads, quote, "In a New Year message published on the latest issue of Famitsu, Kojima-san simply asked, 'Is 2019 the year of the whale? Please look forward to Death Stranding.'" Apparently, that's the only message he conveyed to the magazine's last issue of the year, and I don't know about you, but it sure as hell reads like a teaser. Worth keeping in mind is that in the Chinese calendar, 2019 is actually the year of the pig, which is something that Twinfinite was keen on pointing out, so Kojima isn't being literal here, he's just being cheeky as per usual. In fact, there is no such thing as the year of the whale, with the animals comprising the Chinese zodiac being rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig. Now, if you've been following Death Stranding news, I hardly need to translate the implications behind Kojima asking if 2019 is the year of the whale. Whales have been a key component in the imagery of both Kojima Productions and Death Stranding. A sort of holographic-looking whale can be seen jumping out of some holographic-looking water in the Kojima Productions logo video, and whales have been prominently displayed numerous times throughout Death Stranding trailers, representing an actual real-life phenomenon called cetacean stranding, also known as mass stranding or beaching, which involves a bunch of sea creatures and whales being stranded on land and dying of dehydration and whatnot. Peculiar about these real-life strandings is that while a number of explanations have been proposed, nobody can really say for sure why this actually happens, which sort of goes in line with the enigmatic nature of Death Stranding. What sort of symbolism the imagery of stranded whales represents and what narrative implications it has remains to be seen. But my theory has always been that for some reason, in a very Stranger Things, the Upside-Down-esque scenario, the world of the living and the world of the dead of this universe are bleeding into each other, and we're seeing creatures of the dead becoming stranded in the world of the living. This is particularly represented by how the world of the dead seems to be represented as an underwater world. Land could be an analog for the land of the living, and the sea could be an analog for the land of the dead. So sea creatures from underwater being stranded on land could be an analog to creatures of this underwater limbo-like world becoming trapped and stranded in the world Sam Porter Bridges inhabits. So that's all we really have on what the whales could symbolize in this game, and even then it's all just conjecture. But the main point to highlight is that whales are a key visual element of Death Stranding, so when Kojima asks if 2019 could be the year of the whale, he might as well be asking if it's the year of Death Stranding, and he might as well be winking and nudging at us that we might be able to expect the game sometime in 2019. I don't see why else he would relay a message like this through a major outlet like Famitsu. It's about as obvious as teasers get in my personal opinion. As for whether a 2019 release window is realistic based on all the information we have, I would say it most certainly is if we're talking about late 2019. There are a couple things to note to prove my point. The first one being that with the help of Sony, Kojima managed to acquire the technology and engine required to develop Death Stranding very quickly. A lot of people like to point to Metal Gear Solid 5 as proof that Kojima takes forever with his games, but keep in mind that much of that game's development was taken up by the fact that Kojima Productions was working on a brand new engine, the Fox engine. Kojima knew that he didn't have the luxury of building a brand new engine from scratch when establishing the new Kojima Productions, which is why with the help of Sony, he eventually partnered up with Guerrilla Games to co-develop what would eventually become known as the Decima engine, which at its core is Guerrilla's proprietary engine, with both sides now contributing to it. with the name referencing the Dejima island that Japan used to trade with the Dutch hundreds of years back. So with an existing engine on hand, albeit one that has been greatly modified since its acquisition, will greatly accelerate the development of Death Stranding, and assuming the game is intended to be launched in late 2019, and assuming conceptualization of the game began as soon as Kojima established his new studio in late 2015, we would be talking about a development cycle that's just shy of 4 years. For perspective, a game like God of War took 5 years, and that was with them having to develop new technology for the game. With that context, the 3.5 to 4 year long development cycle for Death Stranding, a game that acquired an engine very quickly, doesn't look so unrealistic now, does it? The second point I'd like to make is that according to Kojima, even Sony was impressed by how quickly the game was being developed. Speaking to website Dengeki in December of 2017, Kojima not only confirmed that the game had passed the experiment phase, with the development team now feeling the response of the new gameplay, he also conveyed that Sony told him the company had never seen anyone make a game at such a fast pace. From there, Kojima told us during Tokyo Game Show 2018 that even with a few hiccups involving the voice actor strike, the game was still on schedule, meaning that whatever original plan he had for Death Stranding's release date hasn't changed much since it was set. Not long after, Kojima told a Japanese news outlet that the game had reached the polishing stages, with Kojima now playing through the game and suggesting improvements, with all gameplay elements having been put together since last summer. It was also around the same time that Troy Baker confirmed during Argentina Game Show 2018 that he had finished shooting for his parts, while stating that Norman was close to being done as well. Then the following month, Norman Reedus conveyed during a podcast that he only had a few sessions of shooting and recording left, with some of them taking place in New York City. And indeed, a few days later, Kojima began posting photos of himself and Norman in New York, with Norman primarily wearing facial capture equipment without the mocap suit, possibly suggesting they're polishing up a few lines and performances here and there and working on a few last things before wrapping up. It's quite common for game development to be in the final stages while actors are finishing up their sessions, so that's one more indicator that Death Stranding's development is further along than you might think. One last thing I'd like to note is that alongside doing some additional shooting with Norman, something else that happened in New York was that Kojima hired a head of marketing and communications for Kojima Productions, a man going by the name of Aki Saito, who actually worked with Kojima back in the Metal Gear days. It sure as hell seems convenient that such a key position would be filled during a time when rumblings suggest the game's development may be less than a year away from completion, wouldn't you say? It's almost as if Kojima and team are preparing to finally go all out on marketing for Death Stranding, a game that up until now has only been teased at best through a number of cryptic trailers. Nobody really knows what the game is yet, though we can glean a few elements here and there, and we all know that marketing the game like that forever is simply not sustainable, so there will come a point in which Kojima and Sony will blow the lid wide open on this thing, explain what sort of gameplay this project entails, and why gamers, Kojima fans, and onlookers alike will be excited to play this game. And there's little doubt that a head of marketing and communication will be crucial when that time comes, seemingly in the not-so-distant future. So yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? If you ask me, there is little reason to doubt that 2019 will be the year of the whale, and the only real question we have to ask ourselves now is, what month? I fully expect we'll get some answers in the not-so-distant future, especially as Sony gets ready to host their own event that will make up for the fact that they skipped PSX 2018 and will be skipping E3 2019. There is bound to be some major Sony event in which PlayStation 4 will receive one last hurrah with upcoming titles like Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and of course, Death Stranding before they tease PlayStation 5 and build towards transitioning into the next generation of home consoles. In the meantime, all we can do is enjoy some holiday artwork like this one of Leia Seido and Lindsay Wagner's characters by Yoji Shinkawa that Kojima posted on his Twitter, as well as this photo featuring an artwork of Ludens posted for the latest issue of Japanese magazine Famitsu, and also posted on Kojima's Twitter. So there you have it, folks, the latest Death Stranding teaser, one signaling 2019 will be a big year for the game. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about all this in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.